there's a reason why people would stop their lives, come from this nice day to come here. And the reasons for coming here to listen to a talk about memory and about caregivers is probably unique to every single person here. But the goal today is to provide you with some information, some insight, maybe some direction on how you might impact the reason why you're here. Then at the end, I'm going to share some hope for some new exciting medications that may hopefully make this disease a thing of the past. I'd like to get to know the audience just a bit. First of all, boomers, people were born between 46 and 64. All right. Now, I love boomers, okay? And don't let these young people make you feel bad about that. We invented this world, okay? And so don't be, they make fun of us, but it's okay. We're already making fun of them, and they've only been alive for about 20 or 25 years. All right, caregivers. How many people do I have that have been a caregiver or now, or a caregiver now, or have been in the past? Wow, okay. Family history of dementia. Mother, father. This is so typical. I was going to ask those concerned about their memories, but that would be every person here. I know that drill. Okay. I'm here for a couple of reasons. I've written 2 books. The first book was published in 2021. It's called Much Abides. It's called A Survival Guide for Aging Lives. A lot of my buddies have given me a hard time. They say, you're so arrogant that you name a book with a byline or a subtitle. But some of the stuff, you all hear a lot of talks, and you come here every month. And I know some of you have in your mind that what does this burned out heart surgeon have to say today that could be of any interest to me? Never mind impact my life. Well, some of the stuff we're going to cover today has the potential to change your life. So I want y'all to open your mind and your heart, and let's see if we can't get to some stuff. So, the first book was about 2 themes. One was about the science behind normal cognitive aging. The majority of people in this room would probably come under normal cognitive aging, meaning that there are effects on your brain from aging itself. And the book goes over those very clearly. And one of the nice things I hear all the time is, Dr. Edwards, once I read your book, I feel like all my memory lapses and everything really aren't quite as serious as I thought. So the reassurance. The second theme is on retirement and on transitions from different phases in our lives. And we're going to go over that a little bit deeper. The books came from this 10-year second career that I have when I've cared for patients losing their memories and caring for the people who were caring for them. The experience changed me as a physician, and it also changed me as a person. What we talk about is going to come directly from all those experiences. In this second phase of my career, I had to develop new perspectives. I had to develop new evidences of success, and also almost a new value system. And that's what we have to do in every phase of our life. If we try to take the trappings of our success when we were in the cars of power and we were working at the bank, or we were a lawyer, or we were like Chuck, we were working in a a franchise, And we try to take that over into this second stage of life, a little bit later. We're going to become isolated, and we're going to struggle. The corporate plane is gone. That structure that we had, where we felt like it was so important what we were doing. And then like for me, on one Thursday morning, I had done heart surgery for 30 years. And it's nice, they shake your hand and you walk out and you say, wait a minute, I got all this stuff in my brain that you're going to need to know. And they go say, we're really not interested in that anymore. You just go on. And so there's this sort of feeling like the world certainly is going to collapse. And then it didn't. And you found out you were not the most important person on the planet. In my career as a cardiac surgeon, I could fix things. People would come to me with problems, and sometimes they would be big problems. And our team could fix those. It's an interesting thing with a heart ailment is that the family comes together and they prepare for the operation. We do it. The majority of the time the patient does well. And then we put up a system where they get better. And then the family goes about living their lives and the patient goes back to living a healthier life. Everybody's happy. Dementia is different. The day that the diagnosis is made or that the symptoms become evident, everyone who's involved, their lives are changed forever. The patient is looking at a certain decline. The families are obligated to care for that person all the way to the end and then beyond. And the children are genetically tied to that. So every day, if they make a little goof or something, they think, oh my God, here we go. This is my time, they think. So that's not the way that dementia works. Parkinson's is basically the same thing. The thing that's interesting about this is during the time that these 10 years that I was caring for patients, I had no ability to impact the disease whatsoever. I could help the caregivers by teaching them what was going to unfold and how you handle certain behavioral issues. And also I could help the patient by making them less depressed, calmer. But the vector of the disease, I had no more ability to help that than the day that Alzheimer in 1906 looked at that microscope, through the microscope, and saw those plaques and tangles. So oddly enough though, this part of my life, these 10 years, have been the most rewarding of my whole career. I love doing surgery. I love being in the operating room. I especially love the patients waking up and knowing that they were going to be better. I couldn't have asked for a more rewarding career, but these last 10 years have been extremely important to me. Being this close to the suffering made me understand what the patients were going through. I got to listen to their tales. I got to hurt when they were hurting. And I was there at the end when the patients were dying. And this opened up an awareness and appreciation in me because I was able to see what the human spirit does when it's at its very best. Both books came out of all of this. The books share three themes. The first is our relationship with time. In the books, I spend a lot of time on this, but I want to make a couple of points. If you reach the age of 65, the average lifespan is 84. The average now. You get to live a lot longer. Some don't get to live quite as long. But if you happen to make it to 75, and I can see in this room there are a lot of people that have already made it to 75. Congratulations. The average lifespan is 89 years. So the takeaway from this is I'm going to live a lot longer than I had anticipated. Okay? From 65 to 90 is 25 years. That's actually a lifetime. And you always hear the refrain that people say, if I could just do this over again, knowing what I know now, that would be amazing. Well, actually, we have a chance to do that, provided we pay attention to what's going on in our world. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. The second thing is, the theme is that we have to have new value system, new success modulations, and an appreciation. Our lives change as we move into different transitions. And we make many transitions in retirement. Early retirement is very different from the late fragment when you are 89 years old or 92 years old and you're no longer playing golf, you're no longer traveling, and you have to find things to hold on to during that time. So we have multiple phases in our retirement, and being aware of others is really important. And finally, the crucial observation, actually demand is a better word, that human interaction is the vital element in our lives. And it is the predominant source of joy in our lives. Okay? And this becomes exponentially more important as we age. So the idea that every month you come here, and what the guy says that's behind that lectern or sitting on this stool, that's not really what the deal is. The deal is the time that you spend finding out how everyone is doing here, like we're praying for this man that's in his last legs. And his wife is there, and she wants to know that y'all are thinking about him. And having that bond and taking care of one another is the predominant and most important source of joy in our lives. I was asked to talk about caregiving, okay? We're not going to go into it too deep, but I'm going to quote Rosalind Carter when she said, there are only 4 types of people in the world. People that are caregivers, have been caregivers, will be caregivers, or will need a caregiver. So we all got skin in this game, and I want you to listen up. Let's start with caregivers. In the second book, Late Fragment, there's a chapter called The Limits of Devotion. It is where we take apart the role of the caregiver. This is tough business. This is not easy. At Hopkins, we used to spend all our time concentrating on the patient. How did the patient present? What were the symptoms of the presentation? Are there behavioral issues? Are there medications? What phase are they in? We didn't spend any time talking about the caregivers, ever. But when I returned to Charlotte, I realized right away I could not impact the patient unless I worked through the caregiver. And as the disease progressed, we spent more and more time with the caregiver because that's where all of the care came from. So I came to this. I saw these stages of caregiving, and they weren't strategies. They weren't, oh, you do this in this particular case. We do all that. But the stages of caregiving for me, and what really came out, was the emotional aspects of the different stages. The idea that someone wakes up in the morning and they have a responsibility for another human being, and what they're thinking about is, what am I going to see today that I'm going to have to take care of? And how am I going to get through that? All right, so stage 1. Stage 1 is before anything happens. Okay, there's no signs or anything. Anything is fine. All right. The chemistry of what's going on at that time, the personality of the marriages or the relationships between adults and children will establish the tone for the ability of a family or a spouse to care for a patient with dementia. Okay, and what we do in our first interactions, we are trying to determine whether or not this caregiver has the potential to make the patient calm, safe, clean, and loved. Do they have it? Is there an evenness in this relationship, or is one person dominant? If one person's dominant, are they the ones that have the illness, or are they the ones that are going to be the caregiver? So all of these things come into play, but we try to establish how much help this person is going to need. One of the things I want to, taking care of a parent. How many of y'all have taken care of a parent as a child? Okay. So I don't think you get enough credit. All right, this is a big sandwich, you know. You've got your own family, you've got all that stuff going on, and then you have to take care of an adult and a loved one, a mother or father. We don't give enough credit because I think oftentimes that bond of trying to care for an adult when you're the child and they're the parent is very disruptive. Spouses, they live together. They have the same schedule, okay? Now they have the emotional demands are a lot tougher, but it's very disruptive because you have to stop what you're doing when you're caring for a parent and leave the people that you're really responsible for in that immediate family and go somewhere else and take care of that person. And so I'm not so sure that we always appreciate exactly how challenging it is in the adult child caring for patients. A spousal caregiver has the emotional challenges, and they are watching someone that you love and you're watching this every day, which sometimes becomes unbearable. Watching it up close. Okay, so stage one, the relationship before anything happens. All right, stage two, I call this the wishing and hoping. We call this the Dusty Springfield stage. Who here knows about Burt Bacharach and Hal David and the song Wishing and Hoping? Okay, it's a great song. All right, and we call it because 90 to 95% of the patient's cognitive abilities are still intact, but there are these intermittent, sudden lapses that throw everything off. Simple example, a woman and this close friend of mine, this couple, very happy, and the wife fixes dinner, and then the husband washes the dishes and puts them in the dishwasher. So one night, he put all the glasses upright, and when the wife came in, she saw that there was water in them, and she goes, "Joe, you put the glasses up." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And she didn't give it any more thought. The next night, he did the same thing. So she said, something's funny here. Now, that's just an intermittent, kind of a lapse that you wouldn't give much credit for. All of a sudden, thoughts start creeping into your brain. He had a couple more problems, and then all of a sudden she said that every morning she would wake up. He would be fine most of the time. She would wake up with her fingers crossed, just hoping that she didn't see something that day that was going to tell her where her life was going. The takeaway from wishing and hoping phase is fear, an underlying anxiety about where are we going, okay? All right, now we're going to progress a little bit to stage 3, which is called in the trenches. We know what we've got. If I ask someone who is in stage 2, wishing and hoping, what percentage of the time are you a caregiver? Okay? What I mean by that is when you are dealing with your husband or wife, how often do you have the disease in your brain when you're dealing with them? And oftentimes they'll say, "Oh, I'm 90% cool." It goes from 90% when you are in the trenches in stage 3, it's immediately, I'm 100% caregiver, okay? All day, every day, when I'm speaking about to him or with him or we're going anywhere, I'm always thinking about the lapses. Early on, and I'm writing a book about this now, it's called Coming Closer. And I really Coming Closer is about the 3 phases of early memory loss. Normal cognitive aging, mild cognitive impairment, which is you have a normal life but you just forget things, and then early dementia. And I want the people in those 3 stages to realize that if 90% of your life is okay, we're not going to let the 10% disrupt it. Focus on what's working. And if we can get that into the caregiver early, even when only half of it's working, or when it gets down to 20%, we're still looking for the things that are working. All right, so we're in stage 3, and all of a sudden, something happens. It's called the switch. A switch is thrown. You don't throw it. Okay? It's thrown for you. And that switch it comes from in your brain. Sometimes it gets so hard and you are so exhausted that you say to yourself, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go the distance here. And the second thing you say is, I'll be glad when this is over. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, I have just wished that someone I love dies. Well, every caregiver that has ever lived has had that moment. I don't know if I can go the distance, and I'll be glad when it's over. And usually it's the best caregivers that have the most problem with the switch. The switch is the human body and human brain can only tolerate so much emotion. You are going to back away at some point. So you have been on a roller coaster. When the patient's doing well, you're doing well. When the patient's down, you're down. So then when the switch is thrown, you go from being on that emotional roller coaster to pulling back and becoming a manager. You start to strategically manage. You've got a checklist. I'm going to do everything I'm supposed to do, but I'm going to get my emotions off of this roller coaster. And you don't do it. It's done for you. Now, what happens when that switch is thrown is you feel absolutely terrible. You've done everything you can, and here this thought is, I don't think I'm strong enough to do this. It's not that I don't care, but it's changed. And so we spend a lot of time talking about that switch because it's part of being human. But then the reaction to it is so self-deprecating. You feel like you're unworthy and that I haven't done the job. And again, I repeat, the people that have done the best job are the ones that react the strongest to it. All right, so stage 5 is the patient dies. And here's where things, so for an average of 9 years, the caregiver has done nothing except in their brain, worried, concentrated, and fretted over what's going on in their life in relation to the patient, to the person with the disease. And all of a sudden, it's gone. They're gone. And you don't have anything in that brain right away to replace it. And it's the source of what we don't want, which is an abnormal grief reaction. Now, it's not a nice song. An abnormal grief reaction. I use the metaphor that the person that has died goes into a room in your brain, okay? And that's where they are. And when you are first widowed or widowed, you spend a lot of time in that room. You are there and you're thinking about that person all the time. And as time goes on, what we want to have happen, of course, is that you spend less and less time in that room. And finally, One of the nice things about the metaphor, though, is the reason why they have abnormal grief reactions is because they feel guilt about their lives moving on without the person that has departed. They say, I can't be disloyal, and I can't go and have a good time or laugh or smile or whatever, because I won't be loyal to this person that I lived with all those years. Well, obviously, that has to stop, but one of the nice things about the room metaphor is that you'll always have that person with you. And when it's time to go in the room and spend time with them or have those cherished memories, you get to walk right in there. And then you can turn your back on it and go and turn toward the living. Find love and purpose in the people that are still in your life. Because when you have an abnormal grief reaction, what happens is two people die. The person with the grief reaction and the person that's departed. And you also, think about this, if you're a child and they've lost their father and their mother has an abnormal grief reaction, what you're telling that child is, you're not important enough to carry my life on. I have to have more than this. I have to have something that's gone, and I'm going to have this relic be the center of my life. And then you lose the children too. So this is really important, the stage 5. We spend a lot of time counseling, and it's very simple. Turn toward the living. It's also where the sense of community comes in. That you reach out to that person and say, I know you don't want to do this, but we are going to do something today. We're going to take a walk, or we're going to, and then you get their attention, and they start to adjust. Okay? All right, good. All right, every week in the Memory Center, especially with people with a family history, we have people come in and they say, I know I've got it. And they've done something stupid, and we're going to talk about glitches here in a second. So I'm going to tell you things, if you were coming to me, things I don't worry about, okay? Then we're going to talk about things I do worry about, and then we'll end it up. Things I don't worry about. I don't care about names, okay? I love the name tags, okay? I love the name tags, but I don't care about names. We peak at about age 27 at remembering names. And names really, you can tell if someone says, oh, do you remember Joe Blow? And I say, oh yeah, and no, if they ask your name, who was that guy that was president of the United States during this? And you go, oh my God, I remember. His daughter's name was this, and you go through everything. You just can't come up with the moniker. Forget it. Okay, it doesn't matter. Names do not tell me that someone has dementia. Okay? Technology. Okay, now we've got a problem with technology because it comes under fluid intelligence. A lot of stuff in the book about fluid intelligence. It's where we solve problems with no history. Well, that's technology for us. I mean, you lose the ability to turn your television on with the remote because there's always a button put there to frustrate you. You hit it by mistake, okay? And then you can't do anything, all right? And then your grandchildren come along and you'll have your phone in your hand or an iPad. They will rip it out of your hand, do something, and hand it back, thinking you're an idiot. Okay? Don't let them have the phone when they're around you. Don't let them sit there on the phone. We're raising a generation of idiots, and it's going to come back to haunt us. All right, errors. We become less apt to pick up errors. So we have to be much more vigilant, especially about driving. Okay, where the consequences are so drastic. So when you're getting in the car, don't be in a rush. Sit there for about 10 seconds and make a map of where I'm going and where, because if you're coming out of here, your life is in danger, okay? If you're on Highway 21, it's only a matter of fate that you're gonna make it, okay? So be aware. Going into a room, people always say, oh, I keep going into rooms and I forget why I was there. What you do in that circumstance is go back to the room that you just came from, because you're putting up a picture and you needed a nail, and so you went downstairs and you forgot. But as soon as you go back upstairs, there's the nail, okay? You know it right away. The delay. I don't want you to get scared about the delay. The delay is that you're talking, and then all of a sudden there's some sort of name or event that just disappears, okay? It's there to make you look ridiculous, okay? But don't let it, okay? All you do is smile and say, just give me a minute here, I'll get it, okay? So also, big glitches, all right? So example, little glitches are that you're filling up your car, and they ask you for your zip code. And you go, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to get gas because I can't remember my zip code. It'll come back to you. It'll just take a while. It's the delay, all right? One lady was telling me, she said, I have dementia. And I said, why? She said, well, first of all, I had a fender bender. And then I decided I wanted to get the fender replaced. So I made an appointment at the body shop. But I drove my husband's car over there that didn't have the fender. She said, I've got it. The worst one is on me. The worst one is on me. So on Thursday mornings, I would always see patients in their home or at their facility. And you Charlotteans, you know on Park Road where the Giant Genie used to be? Anybody here know about that? Okay. So behind that, there's a coffee shop. It's called Mugs. And I used to go in there and have coffee there every time. And so there's a woman down who's a caregiver for her husband. And she has a little kiosk there. They're both dead now, but she had a kiosk. And then he sat in a bench out there watching the world go by. And so I came out with my coffee, and he jumps up, and he goes, I know you. And I said, Mr. Jones, you do know me. And he said, high school. We went to high school together. And I said, now, Mr. Jones, I'm your memory doctor. And he goes, you're doing a terrible job. So then I get in the car and I start to drive away, and he comes screaming at me. And I say, oh, what is this? And I roll down the window, and he reaches up and grabs the coffee off the top of the car. And he hands it to me, and he said, you don't know how good this makes me feel. So when you make a mistake, Lisa Genova, who wrote Still Alice, which is a really good book, by the way, she came to Charlotte, and she used the term, big glitches, hold them lightly. Just keep moving on. If you've got a problem, it's going to find you, but don't sit there and stew over it all day long. All right, they asked me to talk a little bit about how to protect your brain. Okay, this is important. The first thing is recognize depression. Depression, as we age, becomes, it changes its face. It changes its face. When you're young and you are depressed, your whole body, your physiognomy, your facial expressions, you look at someone and go, that dude is depressed. What's going on? He needs a little life. But as we age, it presents itself in different ways. Okay? It might be just something as simple as losing what's called anhedonia, losing the pleasure from things that used to give you terrific pleasure. It might be irritability, someone that was very gentle and kind. All of a sudden, they have anger issues. So when you see something that doesn't fit, you say, this is so unlike my husband or my wife. Think, could they be depressed? Okay? Natural receptors in the brain go down, serotonin especially, and most of the antidepressants, all they do is put serotonin back to a level that's acceptable. Okay. The second thing is hypertension. You think the most important number in your life is that number every month that comes from your account at Merrill Lynch or something. You look at it and go, hey, I'm doing pretty good, all right? Doesn't matter, all right? If you can't turn that number into joy in your life, that money might as well not exist. But the most important number in your life is your blood pressure. When you go to the doctor and they say, oh my gosh, you must be a little excited today, your blood pressure is 160 over 98. And you go, I'm not excited. I want to see the doctor. Because hypertension drives memory loss. Hypertension drives memory loss. And as we age, hypertension will sneak into our lives. Okay? I've never had a high blood pressure. And then all of a sudden they'll take it, it'll be marginally high. And you'll say, this isn't right. And don't mention my name, because a lot of primary care physicians say, I wish you'd get off the circuit because you're driving me crazy. Every patient I have comes in and says, Dr. Edwards says you need to do a better job on hypertension. Okay. Hearing loss. The number one marker for memory loss in a lifetime is hearing loss. Let me say that again. The number one marker for dementia is hearing loss. So I know, we always get that. Get tested, and don't spend $7,000 to have, say, I can't afford it. Well, Costco and all these new ones that you hear or you see on the television are very effective of just helping just a little bit. But don't let hearing loss translate into memory loss. All right, alcohol, sleep. One of the most important things is I like my patients to get 9 hours of sleep. I like you to go to bed at 9 o'clock, and I like you to get up at 6 o'clock. Now, all the women here, they're already thinking, this guy's out of his mind. Women don't sleep very well. I don't know whether it's the regrets or what, but they just don't sleep well. Okay. So men, and they don't like to see men take naps. Oh my God. So what are you doing? You're taking a nap? Yeah, I'm taking a nap. It feels good. So sleep. One of the detrimental parts of alcohol is it prevents us from going into the deep levels of sleep. The human body is amazing in that when we go into those deeper levels, there are these little Pac-Man called microglia, and they eat up all of the bad stuff in your brain. But if you don't get into those deep levels, you don't get that benefit. Alcohol, now having one glass of wine 2 or 3 nights a week and then have dinner is not a big deal. I'm not talking about that. But you don't want to be drinking it after dinner, and you don't want to be drinking it every night. I like 2 or 3 nights a week where you wouldn't touch alcohol at all. Alcohol and age, mostly because of falls. We don't sense the earth as well as we did, and when you drink, and if you have 2 or 3 glasses of wine, you are eventually going to fall. Destructive medications. Here's one that drives me crazy. All right, so I'll tell a patient, I don't need to pick on women, but I'm going to here, and I'll say, I really want you to take an antidepressant. Dr. Edwards, I'm not taking any of this medicine that you're going to prescribe for me. I'm fine. Well, they come back in, 3 months later, and I look at their medicine list, and they've spent $1,000 on supplements. And I say, no, wait a minute. You wouldn't take the medicine I wanted to give you. She said, well, there was a lady in the beauty parlor next to me, and she said that this was the greatest thing in the world. Don't put a bunch of stuff in your bodies that you don't know what's in them. The supplements, Prevagen, it's fraud. All of those things that say they're going to make your memory better, it's fraud. We only have 2 supplements or 2 vitamins that we like. One is vitamin D, because we don't get as much sun, and we've got sunblock now. So it's a hormone, it's made in your skin, and we don't get enough vitamin D. And the second thing is vitamin B12. We don't absorb it. So those are the only 2 things. And the vitamin B12 I want under your tongue, okay? Because if you don't absorb it, you're not going to absorb it when you take it. So go in and it'll say sublingual, and you just take it under your tongue, 5 milligrams of B12. All right, dental hygiene. Keep your dental hygiene up to date. You say, well, I'm 83 years old. Why do I need to go to the dentist? That patients with periodontal disease have a much higher incidence of dementia than people that have healthy gone. So just be aware of that, okay? All right. Also for your brain, I love people reading fiction. I like being involved. I like being curious. And that's a nice thing about being here today is that you're curious about what's going on, okay? And the last thing is, we live in a very anxious world. There's a underlying, everything is underlying that we've got so much global warming that we're going to be gone in 3 weeks. Everybody wants to tell you that we're doomed. Well, you know what? We've been doing pretty well for a long period of time. So try to take these warnings and these people that are pointing their fingers at you, be careful about, on either side of the political spectrum, to sit in front of that TV and listen to people who want you to hate someone that disagrees with you. Get rid of that, okay? All that does is take and distracts you from interpersonal relations. If you're angry, people aren't going to want to be around you. So do not allow, and I'm talking about the left and the right, is poison, right? The last thing is, we really get upset with our children because, or our grandchildren especially, because they're on those phones. But if you notice, any place you go in a restaurant, the old guys are on their phones too, you know, and they can't get off of them. Anxiety in the human brain is manifested as obsessions, okay? Obsessions. Obsessions with politics, obsessions with phones, obsessions with different parts of our lives. And so just be aware that we're being whipsawed by this anxious world. All right, last thing, hope for the future. Right now, there have been 3 drugs that have been approved by the FDA to treat memory loss. Okay, they are what are called monoclonal antibodies. And every one of them ends with an MAB, monoclonal antibody, okay? The first one was a drug called aducanumab, and it came out of Boston from Biogen. And we did not think that it should have been approved. And 9 of the people on the panel that reviewed it said it shouldn't be approved. But there's so much money and so much stuff from Big Pharma over to the FDA that they approved it, okay? And there are side effects to every one of these drugs. Aducanumab was $70,000 a year, and then when it didn't work, they decided to lower it to $30,000, okay? And finally they pulled it off. There are 2 drugs now that are available. Lecanemab, monoclonal antibody, lecanemab, and donanemab. That's a Lilly drug. Lecanemab is a Biogen drug. They have some benefit. It is narrow. It can be more enhanced in some patients than others, but they aren't the answer. That's not going to be the breakthrough. It's not going to be the shining light. There is a couple of new medications. One specifically is called trontinemab, Tronti. And it uses a concept called brain shuttle. They've taken and fused the drug, Tronti, onto ferritin. Ferritin crosses the blood-brain barrier very easily. And so therefore, we can use lower doses of the medications to get the effect. And we're seeing only 5% of people developing the swelling and the bleeding that occurs in 20% in people that are taking donanemab. So after 12 weeks of the pill, 95%, this is in a phase 2 trial, it's not available now, phase 2 trial, 95% of all the amyloid was gone. So it's going to first of all tell us if we see no improvement in cognition, then it's not amyloid that's causing the problem, okay? And then if we see if amyloid is gone and people are cognitively better, then it's going to be a giant breakthrough. They're in phase 2 now, starting the phase 3 trial. I don't recommend my patients taken it. I think we've let that first round of the phase 3 go through, and then if it looks like there's promise, then we will aggressively try to get our patients on it. So thank you for being here today. I'm hoping that in the very near future, we won't be coming together to talk about dementia. I'm hoping it's going to be gone. All right, thank you.